Finally today, with temperatures beginning to dip down, it's time again to make sure that your center pivot irrigation system is prepped for winter and next year's growing season. I was joined this week by Extension educator Steve Melvin to discuss what you should be doing to winterize your pivot irrigation system. Agricultural equipment is a large investment. As such, it's paramount to make sure that you're keeping your equipment up to snuff and in good working condition. With temperatures dropping, it's that time of year to begin thinking about winterizing that equipment. One item that may be most important are center pivot irrigation systems. Since these systems are stored outdoors, it's especially important to make sure that you properly winterize to avoid any headaches next spring, and there are a number of things you need to address.
Well, the most important thing, first off, is just to make sure the water is drained out of everything. And even at this date, probably most of the state hasn't frozen hard enough to break something, a big pipe or whatever that might still have some water in it. So if you haven't went out and checked to make sure that everything's drained out, that's certainly the first thing to do. Also check the water, if there's any water in any of the gearboxes, and drain that out and refill them with oil. Another thing that's always kind of important to think about is a direction to park the pivot, for field work this winter or this next summer, spring when you get out there. Also, I always get asked about, okay, so which direction do I park it so the wind doesn't blow it over? And I've seen pivots get blown over, no matter which direction they're parked. But it seems to me over the years that maybe if they're parked to the southeast, they're a little less likely, but there's no guarantees on that. Also, cable theft is something to think about. If, some guys like to park them pointed towards the road because it's a little more obvious if somebody was out there, maybe with somebody driving by or whatever. So certainly that's a thing to consider. The irrigation engine, if it's a diesel engine or something out there, you want to make sure that it's ready for the winter. If you don't put coolant in the radiator in the summer, you sort of want to get that drained out. And it's always better if you can take them off and bring them and put them inside for the winter. So, several things to think about and do if you have a chance to get it done.
When going through your winterization process, Steve also recommends turning off any power in the field for any electrical units to mitigate any chance of unintended power-ups.
One thing that I always encourage guys to do, particularly with the electric pivots, is make sure you turn the power off out in the field. Having a pivot start up and pump water in January when it's 10 below zero is a bad situation. I've seen it happen. It ices up the out end of the pivot pretty quickly and it'll usually tear down some of the towers and break things. So you've got a big repair bill on it. And you say, well, that could never happen. Well, sometimes weird things happen. The grandkids are playing with your smartphone. It's got the app to automatically start the pivot, or maybe there's some guys out driving around, maybe not looking for trouble, but ended up finding some and just happened to randomly start them. That's where I've seen it, is just people that are out, driving around too late at night and getting trouble starting a pivot or something. So always be sure and turn those off. Another thing I think with security this year, particularly with the prices, if there's some fertilizer left out there in a tank, that you were fumigating with, or maybe there's some diesel in the tank out there, you may want to think about doing something to try to secure that, either bring it into the farmyard or put some locks on things or something.
It's also highly recommended to take the time to create a checklist for your irrigation winterization. This could help you to avoid making any errors or forgetting any critical aspects of the job.
But if you haven't done that yet, certainly consider making a list of the things that need to be repaired. It's unlike the tractor or the combine or something you can take into the dealership and they can start it up and run it in the wintertime to see what needs to be done on it. With a pivot, you can't really do that too easily. However, you can start a pivot on about any day it's over 40 degrees and check pressures and leaks and things. But, make that repair list where you forget all of those things. This next year, it looks like fuel is going to be higher priced. We may want to consider replacing a sprinkler package. Kind of the industry standard is about 10,000 hours or 10 years you should. And it's probably largely around the pressure regulators just get fatigued and start to fail. And so, it's a good idea to think about that, something you may want to put a little more emphasis on this year.